Hey folks, I'm Papa Boris, and in this video I'm going to play a game of Altered against a stranger on the internet. Now, for this first video, I'm going to pick I guess pick the same faction that I did in my rules video. It's a pretty simple one. So every other round, when they are the first player, this particular hero gets a free 2/2/2 companion in the companion lane. Now, this faction is sort of the fast faction. They often get off to an early lead, but might stall and not be able to close the deal. I can't hide this, so I can't talk about my opponent's faction just yet, but let's go over some of the decision making at the beginning of the game. By no means am I any kind of an expert whatsoever on this. Your first round, you have 3 mana, so if you can spend exactly 3 mana, that is great. So Sun Wukong is a character I definitely want to keep in my opening hand. In addition to this, you want to think about what you're going to be doing on the next turn. So keeping, for example, a 3 and a couple of 2s makes a lot of logical sense for your mana. One rule, I think I forgot to mention it in my rules video that is extremely important, is that there are only 2 slots in your reserve. So if I were to, for example, play Sun Wukong on the first turn and then a couple of 2 mana things on the second turn, my reserve would be full. So there's like a little bit of a balance you have to navigate between playing all of the sexy cards in your hand and using up the cards in your reserve so that you're not losing card advantage. What I think I'm going to do is keep one of these. So this is an interesting one. When you play it from your hand, you can discard one of your opponent's cards from their reserve. But when you play it from your reserve, you don't get the sabotage effect, but you do get +1/+1/+1. And this is pretty good. It's basically, +3/+3 for 2 mana, but you have to attach it to a character, so if your opponent has removal, you can get down on cards. I guess we'll keep one of each of those. This is a pretty good... Oh, hang on a second. I did not do what I wanted to do. I clicked on Sun Wukong. I will mention this card. Hold on. There we go. I'll mention this card. So this has Fleeting. Fleeting means that it does not go into the reserve. When it's time for it to go, it's discarded and goes to the graveyard, but you can see it has really outsized stats for its mana cost. Okay, my opponent is the permanence-themed faction. So when they play a permanent that costs 3 or more mana, they also get a free 2/2/2 token. Unlike me, they have to do something to get this token, but also unlike me, they could potentially get a free 2/2/2 every single round as long as they have enough permanents to play. I haven't actually played with this deck, so I don't know how many permanents they have. All right, they began with a pretty inefficient play, which I'm not blaming them for. I'm just, this is more of a long-term deck. So when this card is played from the reserve, they get a 2/2/2 token. So next turn when they play it, this is going to be pretty good value, but right now it's just a 2/2/2 for 3, which is not great. So if I had like a really efficient 2-drop and a 1-drop, I could actually win both lanes here. Like if I had been the first player, with my companion, I would win this lane and then I could play a character and win that one as well. But here what I'm going to do is place Mr. Sun Wukong. So my opponent is tied with me on Forest and Lake, so they're not going to advance, but I beat them on Desert, so I will advance. So this means that I will advance 1 and they won't, which means they'll be a little bit behind. But that is not to say that my opponent is bad or that their deck is bad. It's just kind of the way that things work with this particular deck. This is sort of the fast faction, and you should expect to get ahead. Okay, so now I'm the first player, which means I'll be getting a free token. But first, we both draw 2 cards, and we may pick one of them to discard for mana. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, perhaps incorrectly, kind of go for a more long game. We're going to get rid of this Fleeting card, which is inefficient for cards, and we'll try to, get high-value mana plays. Now, as the starting player, I have some interesting choices here. I could, of course, play Mr. Sun Wukong and get a whopping 4/6/4 in 1 lane and call that pretty good. However, I could also play Mr. Saboteur here. This would allow me to get rid of my opponent's Foundry Armorer before they can get this reserve benefit into play. The disadvantage is that I'm going to be a little bit low stats-wise, and I'm not going to be using up all of my mana. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to play Sun Wukong, guarantee pretty much with this whopping 6 desert stat that I'm going to be moving through this desert region, let my opponent do what they will with their mana. I'm pretty much guaranteed to get 1 advancement, my opponent has to work a little bit to stop me from advancing here. I guess they could play this just to sort of stop me. Or no, they want to play this here. Oh no, they played a new card. Okay, never mind. I was thinking they could play this here, and then with the free 2/2 token, they would beat my token. But instead, they use their hero power to generate the 2/2 because they played a permanent. That ties my token, so I don't move here. So I moved here, but I spent a very big card to do it. Now, what is this permanent? At noon, resupply, put the top card of your deck in reserve. It's pretty nifty, so it allows you to basically get free cards in your reserve and potentially play them out. This also means if you have a card that has like a good it's like good to play from the reserve because it's cheaper or has cooler effects, you never have to play it from your hand first to get the benefit. Okay, what am I going to discard for mana? Well, we're going to have 5 mana to work with. So I think as cool as this is to later on pay 3 for a 3/3, I don't really want to go through the step of paying 1 for a 1/1 because I have ways to use up all my mana efficiently, so we're just going to use that as mana. Alright, they got this in their reserve from this permanent. So it's a fleeting 3/3. Yikes, this is really scary. Send me to discard instead of reserve, but they can choose to basically take a character off the board as long as it costs 4 or less, which is pretty massive disadvantage for me because, of course, they could play it, get a 3. Oh, it's a spell. It's not a minion at least. But if I were to like load up, you know, somebody, they would be able to knock him off. Anyways, let's see. They have 3 cards and 2 mana. They played another permanent. 3 Keylon counters. At noon, you may pay 1 mana and spend one of my Keylon counters to make a token. Okay, so they're getting lots of these brass bug tokens. I think what I'm going to do here is just, you know, play it kind of simple. We'll just go over here in this empty lane and get rid of this spell, which seems like something I just don't really want to have to deal with. And then see what they're going to do with the remaining 2 mana. Right now, we're both set to move. Them in the Companion Expedition, me in the Hero Expedition. And if we're trading 1 movement every round, I'm completely fine with that because I got off to an early lead, so I don't need to go crazy blocking my opponent's moves. I just need to make sure that I'm making progress on my own. This is actually a really good card. It's a 3/3 for 2. It's missing Forest, which is sometimes very critical, but you are getting 3 of the other terrain types for just 2 mana, which can be very strong. I don't think I need to do anything, though. They have no mana. They're winning this. I'm not stopping that from happening. They only have 2 water, though. Okay, hold on. All right, so I'm going to play this to get 3 water. Notice how this works. Both of us can move. They beat me on forest and desert, so they'll move. But then I beat them on water, so I move. They were clearly hoping I didn't have a way to generate 3 water for 2 mana. So now their companion moves. My hero and my companion move. So I'm getting pretty close here. I just really need to make sure I don't stall out. At the moment, I don't really have any super big cards, but I'm probably going to just take a turn playing things from my reserve for efficiency, because that's a way this deck can lose, is that you just sort of run out of steam and run out of cards. Okay, this is a pretty strong card, so it gets 3 forest. Unfortunately, we're not in forest, but for 3 forest for 2 mana is pretty good, and if you play it from reserve, it comes in with +2/+2/+2, so then it's like a massive 5/3/3 for 4 mana. So I'm not going to play that this turn because I'm not in forest, but I will play that later. What I think I'm going to do, it's tough. I kind of want everything here. I will play this spell into my mana pool because I've seen that they have a card that lets them discard stuff, so I don't want to go all in buffing things up with crazy amounts of tokens. My game plan here is to win over the course of the next 3 rounds by just piling up and make sure that somebody moves, either my companion or my hero. I don't care who moves, just want one of them to move, and, you know, over the course of 3 rounds, get them to meet up. It's very unlikely at this point that I will be able to move in both locations. All right, so we have 6 mana. What I'm going to do here is just play my little one drop. One thing I love about this game is that, unlike a lot of other trading card games, it makes one drops pretty good because it's a way to kind of pass the time. My opponent now has to go and commit their mana. So what I'm hoping to see is they spend a bunch of mana playing something expensive, and then I can kind of see what the status of the board is. They only spent 2 mana. This is a pretty efficient card. It's 3 types, or 3 for just 2. They come with a forest, unlike my Pathfinder who has no forest. But on the other hand, there's sort of a drawback. It's put a card from your hand in reserve. And since my opponent's reserve is full, this is going to lead to card disadvantage for them. This card only costs 1 from reserve. That's very interesting. So it's a 2/2/2 for 1. Okay, so I'm going to have a little bit of a tough time here, even getting 1 lane to move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile up in the lane where I'm closer to making progress. That's this one where we're currently tied. Hold on a second. That's silly. I should really, I'm going to refresh because when that's a bug in Board Game Arena. If you cancel, the card floats in midair. I'm going to play this one. So it gives me Desert and Lake. Conveniently, I'm in Desert and Lake land over here. This will give me an advantage of 3. Notice this token flew onto the card, by the way. If a card is played from reserve, it gets this token, which means that when it's discarded, it'll be discarded for good. Things don't just ping-pong back and forth out of the reserve and the board, which I did not mention in my rules video, so whoopsie on that. Okay, so they can play 2 cards here. Both of these could be played. That's what I would do if I were my opponent because of, card advantage reasons. Oh, do they just not have any cards in there? They have no cards in their hand. Okay, so they're probably going to end up playing these 2 cards, which means that I, have a pretty clear line of sight here. They'll play 1. I'll know exactly what their last play is going to be, and hopefully I can maneuver it to, again, just guarantee that one of my tokens moves. It's probably not going to be my hero because I've only got 1 to their 3, but that's fine. Okay, so they paid 1. So here, I just need to beat them on lakes or desert. Conveniently, the only card that they can play is 0 lake. They have no cards in hand. This is a noon effect, so not during the rounds. This is also a noon effect. They can play this. It has no lake. Is there a chance I could stop them from advancing here? Let's say I were to play this. Interesting. So right now, if I do play this here, then I will be beating them on desert and lake, and we're tied on forest. So they would then have to play this in order to advance. Do I want to do that? Do I want to force them to do that? I actually do, because this thing has no lake, so I'll actually end up moving both expeditions. It is inefficient, because notice I'm going to have 2 cards going to my reserve. The reserve limit is 3, so I am going to have to discard a card. So I'm not thrilled about that. However, I believe, unless I miscounted, that I'm guaranteed to move my hero because of this. And I think that's worth it. What's going to happen then is my hero and my companion will be right next to each other. And all I need to do is just get something to move 1 time. And I've got some time to make that happen. Especially because my opponent biffed it here. They're only beating me on forest, but they're not in a forest region, so their companion token doesn't even move. So their hero will move, both of my tokens will move, and I have several turns to get anything to move 1 time. Also, my opponent ran out of cards, so even though I am the fast deck and they are the kind of slow build-up permanence deck, they're out of cards. They're going to draw 2 cards. They may discard 1 for mana, or they might not. They do have a full reserve here. Oh, they got this thing. Oh, again. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so I gotta watch for that. That is very, very scary. And then they got this, which is a lot of stats for 3 mana. So, I mean, it's not over. The game is not over because they've got their permanents built up. They're making tokens. They're making more tokens. They very well could just completely demolish me in both lanes. But they are out of cards. And I do have this thing. So I could, like, play this, get it into my reserve, And then, you know, it'll leap out with 5 forest, which is extremely convenient because my hero and my companion are both going to be in forest territories, so this really matters. Now, what am I going to discard from my reserve? The 3/3 for 3, or the 3/3 for 2 that doesn't have forest? I don't need forest. Okay, great. So we're going to be throwing away this Ratatusker, but I am still so happy that I had this card. Just because it was a way to spend 1 mana, pass the turn back to my opponent, and that gave me like the qualitative advantage I needed to deploy the rest of my resources efficiently. Okay, I don't exactly know what my opponent is doing. They have no mana. As near as I can tell, there are no actions they can take. Because noon has already happened. We're in the... What phase are we in? We're in the afternoon. Not to be confused with afternoon. So yeah, this is a phase. Afternoon is where you play the cards. Noon is where noon effects happen. Okay. Anyway. We gotta discard something. I'm gonna get rid of my 3/3 for 3. Because I'm getting the same exact stats for 2. Wait a minute, hold on. Whoopsie. This isn't a 3/3. This is gains 3 boosts. So this is actually a 4/4/4 for 3. Versus a 3/3 for 2. Who are you? This is a 3/3/3 for... Okay, well that's easy. Because this is strictly better than this. So we're gonna get rid of that. Because this costs 3 mana for 3 forest... Sorry, for 3 desert and 3 lake. And this costs 2 mana for 3 desert and 3 lake. And I don't care about forest. I am perfectly happy. Wait, what am I talking about? I do care about forest. Forest, this is in a forest. Okay, that was the wrong play. I needed to keep the forest and pay the extra mana for it. Oops. This could still be helpful because this region has mountain in it, but this is the only forest region, so this thing is not going to be helpful there. So this is like playing face up, as it were. My opponent knows exactly where this thing is going to go. Okay. So, wow, this is tough. I'm going to have 7 mana. 2, 5, 7, perhaps. I don't think I need this. No, the correct thing is 3, 5, 7. You kind of have to juggle the hand cost and reserve cards. So from reserve, it's the red number, 3, 5, and then this is the blue one, 7. Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. This is just a big old beefcake. I could try to keep it on a future round. So one of the things I have to consider is whether I want to do anything this round, because my opponent is just going to have this sea of, what are these, brass bug tokens. They, you know, are probably going to crush me in both lanes. However, if I play nothing, my opponent just gets 2 free advancements, and nothing changes. But when I am the first player, I'll have an extra 2/2/2 over here, and I could try to pound forest. However, what I really should do at the very minimum is play this, right? Because I want this to be in my reserve so I can play it for the boosts, and which means I might as well play one of these because, you know, I need the space. There's a 2-card limit in the reserve. Now, it is good that they are the first player. I mean, I'm sad I'm not getting my token because I'm not first. But them being first... Oh, what did they do? I actually don't know what they did. Wait, they passed? They passed. Oh. Oh, this person gave up. Okay. Well, I don't agree with that. I think there was definitely still a game left to play. But, okay. I guess what I would have done is this, and try to just pound the forest with this guy and this guy. But as it is, my opponent passed, and once you pass, you can't unpass. So, we're not going to be bad sports. We're not going to, you know, make my opponent sit and watch while I play a bunch of cards. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like it or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.